Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Now in today's class we will discuss from 3.6. So let's start element 3.6, the management of change. The first topic we have the impact of change. The impact of change primarily deals with the changes to work processes, equipment, practices, and construction work, including temporary works. Each of these changes carries significant potential risks that need to be managed to ensure the safety, health, and welfare of workers. Let's discuss in details like their impacts and risk management. First one is work processes. Work processes are the standardized procedures and workflows followed within an organization to achieve specific outcomes. When changes occur in these processes, it can alter how tasks are completed, introduce new risks, or modify existing ones. Impact changes to work processes may affect job roles, work pacing, or operational hazards. For example, a shift to automation or digitalization can lead to unfamiliar work environments and introduce ergonomic risks or stress due to learning curves. Risk management. Before implementing changes, conducting a thorough risk assessment to identify new hazards and training employees on the modified processes are crucial. The second one we have equipment. Equipment changes refer to the introduction of new machinery, tools, or technology, or modifications to existing equipment used in work operations. Impact. New equipment may introduce unfamiliar hazards or require new safety protocols. For instance, updating a machine might enhance productivity but also increase the risk of injury if employees are not adequately trained. Risk management. Equipment change management includes training on its safe use, revising operating procedures, updating maintenance schedules, and ensuring proper safety features like guards are in place. Third is practices. Changes in work practices include modifications in the way tasks are performed or in the safety protocols followed. This may involve changes to personal protective equipment, PPE requirements, workflow sequences, or safety protocols. Impact. Altering work practices may lead to confusion among employees or result in non-compliance if they are not adequately informed and trained. For example, introducing new PPE requirements can result in discomfort or resistance if the benefits and reasons for the change are not clearly communicated. Risk management. Ensure all staff are informed and trained in new practices. Adequate supervision is also needed to guarantee that the changes are implemented effectively. The fourth one is construction work, temporary works. Temporary works are a critical part of construction and can include short-term structures like scaffolding or formwork, as well as tasks such as building maintenance or renovations. These works are by their nature temporary but still present significant risks. Temporary works include short-term building projects. Short-term building projects involve activities like the construction of small structures or temporary facilities, often used on construction sites or industrial plants. Impact. Such projects may create hazards like exposure to dangerous heights, use of unfamiliar equipment, or interaction with hazardous materials. Risk management. Detailed planning and risk assessments are essential, as is ensuring that temporary structures comply with safety standards and that workers are aware of all hazards. Building maintenance. Maintenance activities might include repairs, replacements, or upgrades to existing facilities. These activities are often unpredictable and occur in operational environments where employees are exposed to additional hazards. Impact. Maintenance work can introduce risks from working at heights, electrical hazards, or interacting with malfunctioning equipment. Risk management. Procedures like lockout, tagout, low-tow, use of fall protection, and other controls should be in place. Regular maintenance schedules should be followed to ensure safety. Renovation work. Renovation involves altering existing structures, which may include tearing down walls, removing fixtures, or modifying electrical and plumbing systems. Impact. Renovation activities can expose workers to asbestos, dust, or structural instability. Additionally, if the renovation is being conducted in an operational area, there's a risk to the building occupants. Risk management, conducting hazard assessments before starting the renovation and using engineering controls to minimize exposure to hazardous materials are vital steps. Workers should also be trained to handle unexpected risks, such as finding dangerous substances like lead or asbestos. Demolition. Demolition involves the tearing down of buildings or other structures. It requires precision and a well-coordinated plan to avoid accidental collapse and harm to workers. Impact. The risks include falling debris, dust inhalation, noise, vibration, and the danger of structural collapse. Demolition often involves the use of heavy machinery and explosives, introducing further risk. Risk management. Proper risk assessments must be conducted to determine the safest way to dismantle a structure. Measures such as exclusion zones, dust suppression, and worker training are critical for minimizing risks. Excavations. Excavations involve digging into the earth, which can be necessary for laying foundations or pipes. It carries the risk of cave-ins, falling objects, and even exposure to underground utilities like gas or electrical lines. Impact. The primary danger in excavations is the risk of collapse, which can trap workers inside. Other hazards include harmful gases, drowning if the excavation fills with water, or exposure to electrical lines. Risk management. Shoring or shielding should be used to prevent cave-ins. The excavation site should be inspected frequently, especially after rainfall or when changes occur to the surrounding area. Utilities should also be mapped and marked before digging begins. General risk management for change. Regardless of the specific type of change, organizations should apply a structured approach to manage change, which typically includes 1. Risk assessment. Identify all potential hazards that could result from the change. 2. Consultation. Engage workers and other stakeholders in discussions about the proposed changes. 3. Training. Provide sufficient training on new processes, equipment, or procedures. 4. Supervision. Ensure adequate oversight during and after the implementation of changes. 5. Monitoring and review. Regularly review the outcomes of the change to ensure the safety measures are effective and adjust as necessary. This proactive management helps prevent accidents, ensure compliance, and create a safer working environment during and after the transition. So, let's discuss in details. To mitigate the impact of changes in work processes, equipment, practices, or temporary works, several key management principles can be employed. These principles help ensure that changes are safely implemented, risks are minimized, and everyone involved is adequately prepared. First is risk assessment. A thorough risk assessment is the first step in mitigating the impact of change. This involves identifying potential hazards associated with the change and analyzing their possible consequences. Work itself. The assessment should consider the specific tasks being performed, any new risks introduced by changes in work processes, equipment, or temporary works, and how these may affect workers. Impact on the workplace. Beyond the direct risk to the individuals involved, consider how the change might affect the broader workplace. For example, will the change increase noise levels, introduce dust or fumes, or alter the safe movement of people and materials through the area? Mitigation measures. Once risks are identified, appropriate controls, for example PPE, procedural changes, training should be implemented to mitigate these risks. Second, we have communication and cooperation. Effective communication and cooperation are critical to ensuring everyone is informed and working together to manage the impact of change. Between all affected parties, this includes workers, supervisors, contractors, and stakeholders. It is vital to communicate changes clearly, ensuring that everyone understands what is happening, why it is happening, and how it might affect their work. Regular updates, ongoing communication is essential, especially in complex or long-term projects where conditions or plans may change unexpectedly. Engagement, involving workers in decision-making or feedback, can foster better cooperation and ensure that practical concerns or suggestions for safety are considered. Next is competence. The competence of both workers and managers plays a crucial role in safely managing change. This refers to their knowledge, skills, and ability to carry out tasks safely and effectively. Workers ensure that workers are trained for new tasks, equipment, or processes introduced by the change. Competence can be improved through specific training, coaching, and refresher courses as needed. Managers. Supervisors and managers must be knowledgeable about the change management process, risk assessment, and emergency procedures. They should be able to guide and monitor workers appropriately, ensuring compliance with safety measures. Continuous assessment. Regularly assess the competence of both workers and managers, particularly if the scope of work or risk profile changes over time. The fourth one, we have segregation. Segregation of the work area is a fundamental safety measure during temporary works or when changes introduce significant hazards. Physical barriers. Establish physical barriers or partitions to keep unauthorized or untrained personnel out of hazardous areas. This is particularly important in high-risk environments, such as construction zones or areas undergoing demolition. Signage. Use clear, visible signage to indicate restricted areas, explain the hazards, and provide instructions for authorized personnel. Access control. Ensure that only trained and competent individuals can access areas affected by the change. This helps prevent accidents caused by untrained workers entering hazardous zones. And fifth, we have emergency procedures. Every change in the workplace must be accompanied by a review of emergency procedures to ensure that they are still effective and account for the new risks introduced. Impact on existing emergency arrangements. Changes may affect evacuation routes, fire safety systems, first aid access, or the ability to respond to emergencies like chemical spills or equipment failures. A review of these impacts is essential to maintain safety during an emergency. New procedures. If new hazards are introduced, for example, flammable materials, heavy machinery, or confined spaces, the existing emergency plans may need to be revised to accommodate new risks. Emergency procedures should be communicated clearly to all personnel. Drills and testing. Emergency drills and simulations should be conducted to ensure that both workers and emergency response teams can respond appropriately in case of an incident. And last one is welfare provision. Adequate welfare provision for workers involved in the change is essential to maintain well-being and productivity. Facilities. Ensure that welfare facilities such as restrooms, hand washing stations, and break areas are available and accessible to all workers involved in the change. These facilities must meet legal requirements and should be convenient for workers to access without exposing themselves to undue hazards. Health. Consider the impact of changes on the physical and mental health of workers. For example, working in a new, more physically demanding environment or adapting to new work procedures might cause fatigue or stress. Adequate breaks, hydration, and medical support should be available. Psychosocial support. In addition to physical welfare, changes can lead to anxiety or stress. Offering support such as counseling, regular feedback sessions, and mental health resources can help manage the psychological impact of change. So, the success of managing change lies in integrating all these principles into a comprehensive change management plan that ensures safety, efficiency, and cooperation across the organization. By conducting risk assessments, maintaining clear communication, ensuring competence, segregating hazardous areas, updating emergency procedures, and providing necessary welfare support, organizations can mitigate the risks posed by changes and maintain a safe working environment. Okay, so let's move to the next topic, developing a safe system of work, SSW, using the SREDIM method. The SREDIM method is a systematic approach to developing and implementing a safe system of work, SSW. It provides a clear framework for identifying hazards, determining controls, and ensuring safety measures are in place for each task. So there are 6 steps of SREDIM. First, S for select the task. O, identify the task to be analyzed and for which a safe system of work will be developed. The task could involve a single activity or a series of activities that present risks. The second is R for record the steps or stages of each task. O, break the task down into individual steps or stages. This helps in understanding the workflow and identifying where risks might arise. Third, E for evaluate risks associated with each step. O for each step. Conduct a risk assessment to identify hazards, for example, physical, chemical, environmental, and assess the likelihood and severity of harm. This is critical for determining appropriate controls. Fourth, D for develop a safe working method. O, based on the risks identified, develop a set of control measures to eliminate or reduce the hazards to an acceptable level. These controls form the basis of the safe system of work, ensuring that each step can be completed safely. Fifth, I4, implement the safe working method. Once the safe method has been developed, implemented in the workplace, this involves informing and instructing workers on the new procedures, providing necessary training, and ensuring all resources, for example, safety equipment, are in place. And M for monitor to ensure it is effective. O, after implementation, the system must be monitored to ensure that it is working as intended. Regular reviews and adjustments may be necessary to maintain effectiveness and adapt to any changes in the work environment or process. Okay, now go through the worked example, changing a wheel. Let's go through the SREDIM process for changing a car wheel. Step-by-step breakdown. Step 1. Park the car in a safe location. Step 2. Remove equipment from the boot. Step 3. Loosen the wheel nuts. Step 4. Jack up the car. Step 5. Remove the wheel nuts. Step 6. Replace the wheel and wheel nuts. Step 7. Lower the car and remove the jack. Step 8. Tighten the wheel nuts. Step 9. Replace equipment in the boot. Now let's identify controls for each of the steps. We will identify the hazards and determine appropriate controls. Step 1. Park the car in a safe location. Hazards, traffic, risk of violence if in a dangerous area or at night. Controls, select a location off-road if possible. Use hazard lights. Park away from traffic flow. If the area feels unsafe, especially at night or for vulnerable groups, call a recovery service and stay in the car. Step 2. Remove equipment from the boot. Hazards, strains from lifting, poor posture. Controls, use proper lifting techniques, ensure good lighting, place equipment on stable ground. Step 3. Loosen wheel nuts. Hazards, injury from the wrench slipping, hand strain. Controls, use proper tools, wear gloves to protect hands. Ensure a stable stance. Use a torque wrench for ease of use. Step 4. Jack up the car. Hazards, jack slipping or failing, car instability. Controls, use the correct jack for the car, place the jack on a flat, solid surface, and use wheel chocks to stabilize the vehicle. Step 5. Remove the wheel nuts. Hazards, wheel falling, hand injuries. Controls, support the wheel with one hand while removing nuts. Use gloves and keep hands clear of the wheel's path. Step 6. Replace the wheel and wheel nuts. Hazards, dropping the wheel, improper installation of nuts. Controls, use proper lifting techniques. Ensure wheel nuts are hand tightened first to avoid cross-threading. Step 7. Lower the car and remove the jack. Hazards, car instability, jack malfunction. Controls, slowly lower the car. Ensure the ground is stable and the jack is functioning properly. Clear tools away from under the car. Step 8. Tighten the wheel nuts. Hazards, wheel coming loose while driving. Controls, use a torque wrench to tighten the nuts to the manufacturer's recommended specification. Check for even tightening across all nuts. Step 9. Replace equipment in the boot. Hazards, strains from lifting, improper storage. Controls, use proper lifting techniques. Ensure tools are stored securely to avoid them moving while driving. So this is the example of work using SREDIM. Let's move to the next topic, introducing controls and formulating procedures. Formulating procedures and introducing controls can often be the most challenging part of developing an SSW. To ensure that these procedures are practical and accepted by workers, Consider the following strategies: consultation and engagement. Engage workers in the development of the SSW to gain their buy-in. Since they are the ones performing the task, they can provide valuable insights into practical hazards and workable controls. Encourage open communication, allowing workers to raise concerns about the proposed controls or suggest improvements. Allow concerns to be raised. Creating a feedback loop where concerns can be addressed ensures that workers feel heard and that the SSW is as practical as possible. This approach promotes a safety culture where workers are more likely to adhere to the system. Instruction and training. Once the SSW is developed, it is crucial to ensure that all workers are properly trained to follow the safe procedures. This includes information, instruction, training, and supervision, IITS, information. Provide detailed information on the SSW, explaining the reasons for the safety measures and what hazards they mitigate. Instruction, workers must receive clear instructions on how to complete each step safely. Training, depending on the complexity of the task, detailed training may be required. This could include demonstrations or hands-on practice. Supervision. Ensure that supervisors are trained to monitor and support workers in applying the SSW correctly. Training, for tasks with high risks or complex procedures. Formal training sessions may be necessary. This could involve classroom instruction, on-the-job training, or refresher courses for experienced workers. The last topic in the element 3.7, monitoring the system. Monitoring is an ongoing part of the SSW process to ensure that it remains effective and up to date, such as SSW being applied correctly. Regular inspections and audits should be conducted to ensure workers are following the SSW as intended. Supervisors should observe work practices and provide feedback or correction when necessary. SSW is as safe as was intended. The system should be regularly reviewed, especially after any incidents or near misses, to ensure it is still effective in managing risks. Adjustments should be made if hazards change or if new risks are identified. So the SREDIM method offers a structured way to develop and implement safe systems of work. By selecting tasks, evaluating risks, and developing clear safety methods, organizations can reduce hazards and improve worker safety. Effective communication, training, and monitoring are essential to ensuring that the SSW is applied and maintained correctly over time. Hope you understand. Let's move to the 3.8 Permit to Work Systems. A Permit to Work System (PTW) is a formal, documented safety procedure designed to manage high-risk activities. It acts as a part of a broader safe system of work and ensures that specific tasks are conducted safely by controlling associated risks. It is typically used for activities where hazards are significant and normal work procedures are not sufficient to ensure safety. Examples of high-risk work requiring a PTW: hot work, tasks like welding, cutting, or grinding that involve heat or open flames and can ignite nearby materials. High-voltage electrical systems, work involving live electrical systems where electrocution or arc flash hazards exist. Confined space entry into spaces with limited access and potential risks such as asphyxiation, toxic gases, or entrapment. Operational pipelines, work on pressurized pipelines that may carry hazardous substances such as chemicals or gas. Excavation, near buried services, digging near underground utilities such as electrical cables, gas lines, or water pipes. Complex machinery, maintenance or repairs on machinery that pose multiple hazards, including mechanical, electrical, and hydraulic risks. Now let's discuss the operation and application of a permit to work system. 1. Issue of the permit. Details of the work. The PTW outlines the scope of the work, including the task to be done, location, and the potential hazards involved. Location, specific identification of where the work will take place. Date and time duration, the date, start time, and the expected duration of the task are included to track when the work begins and ends. O hazards, a clear description of all hazards associated with the task, such as electrical risks, confined space dangers, or chemical exposure. O isolations controls, specifies any necessary isolation of energy sources, lockout, tagout procedures, depressurization, etc., and control measures, for example, ventilation, barriers to be implemented before the work starts. O PPE requirements, the personal protective equipment required to carry out the task safely, such as helmets, gloves, or respiratory equipment. O name and signature of the authorized person issuing the permit. The permit must be issued by an authorized individual who is responsible for ensuring the adequacy of all safety precautions and confirming that the necessary isolations and controls have been applied. Receipt of the permit, O name and signature of the person receiving the permit. The individual carrying out the work or supervising it must sign the permit, acknowledging that they have received it, understand the safety procedures, and accept responsibility for following the outlined controls. The work can begin, mean during the activities. Once the permit is issued and signed by the responsible worker, the work can proceed, provided all safety measures are in place. Clearance, return to service. After the work is completed, the permit is signed by the worker or supervisor to confirm that the task is finished and the work area is safe. Return to service. This step verifies that the site is ready to be returned to normal operations. All equipment or systems that were isolated can now be reinstated safely. Cancellation. The person responsible for the area, for example, site manager, signs off to formally close the permit, accepting the area or equipment back under normal operation. This ensures that everyone involved understands that the work is finished and normal operational controls resume. 4. Extension. If the work cannot be completed within the original time frame, an extension to the permit may be granted. This involves reassessing the risks and controls before allowing work to continue. The extension process ensures that safety measures remain valid and that additional time does not introduce new risks. Lastly, importance of a permit to work system. Control over high-risk tasks. PTW systems prevent unauthorized or unsafe work from being carried out in hazardous conditions. Accountability. Workers and supervisors are held accountable for safety through signatures, ensuring that everyone involved is aware of the risks and responsibilities. Communication. It enhances communication between different teams, such as operational staff and maintenance teams, ensuring that everyone is aware of the work being done and the hazards involved. Record keeping. PTW provides a documented record of who was involved, what work was done, and the safety precautions taken. This is useful for both legal compliance and future safety reviews. So guys, the permit to work system is a key component in managing high-risk activities, ensuring that proper safety protocols are followed and reducing the likelihood of accidents or incidents in dangerous work environments. Now move to the last element, which 3.9 is the topic of our element number 3, emergency procedures and first aid. Firstly, why we need for emergency procedures. No matter how many precautions are taken in the workplace, emergencies can still occur. Emergency procedures are essential for managing situations that pose an immediate threat to life, health, or the environment. Types of potential or common incidents in the workplaces. Fires. These can occur from electrical faults, flammable materials, or accidents involving heat sources. Bomb threats requires immediate evacuation or lockdown depending on the situation. Spillage of hazardous chemicals. Exposure to harmful chemicals can lead to injuries or environmental contamination. Release of toxic gas. Inhalation risks. Potential poisoning or asphyxiation. Severe weather, flooding, storms, or extreme temperatures may pose risks to worker safety. Multiple casualty accidents, road traffic accidents or industrial accidents causing serious injuries to several people. Terrorist or security incidents. These can involve violence, hostage situations, or explosions. necessitating evacuation and lockdown protocols. Now, emergency procedure arrangements. An organization must have well-defined emergency arrangements in place to minimize the impact of foreseeable incidents. These include identifying foreseeable emergencies, understanding the potential risks within the specific work environment, and planning accordingly. For example, a chemical plant will prioritize procedures for spills and toxic releases, while a corporate office might focus on fire and bomb threats. Procedures for raising the alarm. Clear and accessible methods for reporting an emergency, such as alarms, sirens, or communication protocols to quickly alert all employees. Procedures to be followed. Defined steps for evacuation, shelter in place, or lockdown depending on the type of emergency. This includes designated escape routes, assembly points, and safe areas. Suitable emergency equipment. Fire extinguishers, spill containment kits, breathing apparatus, or other equipment needed to control the situation. Responsible staff. Trained individuals assigned specific roles during emergencies, such as fire wardens, first aiders, and safety officers. Dealing with the media. A designated spokesperson to handle communications with the press to prevent misinformation or panic. Contacting emergency services. Procedures for notifying local emergency services and providing them with accurate information about the situation. For example, the number of people involved, nature of the emergency. Now the organization needs to arrange communication equipment, tools such as landlines, mobile phones, and two-way radios to facilitate communication during the emergency. Contact details, list of emergency contact numbers, including national and local services such as fire departments, hospitals, and rescue services. Responsible individuals, appointed individuals who have all the necessary information and are trained to coordinate the emergency response. The next topic is training and testing. To ensure that emergency procedures are effective, regular training and drills must be conducted. Training for nominated individuals. Special training for those responsible for coordinating during emergencies, such as using firefighting equipment or conducting safe evacuations. Safe handling of emergency equipment. Employees must know how to use emergency tools, such as fire extinguishers, eye wash stations, or breathing apparatus. Emergency drills or regular fire drills, evacuation exercises, and other scenario-based drills should be carried out to ensure that everyone knows their role and can respond swiftly. What is the first aid requirements? Every workplace should have adequate first aid provisions in place to deal with injuries and illnesses that may arise during routine work or emergencies. First aid facilities. Appropriate location. OA designated first aid area should be centrally located and easily accessible to workers and emergency services. Facilities, clean, well lit, heated, and ventilated areas with essential facilities like hand washing stations, chairs, clinical waste bins, etc. First aid equipment, first aid kits. Kits should be stocked with basic items like bandages, antiseptics, plasters, and gloves. Eye wash stations, for rinsing out harmful substances from the eyes, especially in areas with chemical exposure. Emergency showers, for rinsing chemicals off the skin. Blankets, for treating shock or for warmth after accidents. Splints and stretchers, for immobilizing injured limbs or transporting injured workers. Resuscitation equipment, such as defibrillators and oxygen masks. Wheelchairs, for transporting injured individuals, particularly in large facilities. First aid personnel. The role of first aid personnel is to provide immediate care to injured individuals until professional medical assistance can be arranged. The 3 P's of first aid. 1. Preserve life. Immediate actions to prevent the condition from worsening. 2. Prevent deterioration, taking steps to stop further injury such as applying a bandage or immobilizing an injured limb. 3. Promote recovery, early treatment that supports healing and ensures comfort. Types of first aid personnel: appointed person, or an individual with basic or no formal first aid training, primarily responsible for calling emergency services and maintaining first aid equipment. Emergency first aiders, trained to give first aid in low-risk situations. First aiders, fully trained individuals capable of handling more serious injuries. Coverage of first aid depends on risk level. The higher the risks, the more trained first aiders will be needed. Workplace hazards, specific hazards like chemicals, machinery, or heights increase the need for specialized first aid responses. Accident history, past incidents can indicate whether additional resources are required. Vulnerable persons, consideration for individuals who may need extra care, such as pregnant workers, elderly, or those with disabilities. Number of workers, the more employees, the greater the need for first aid personnel. Work patterns and shift systems. If there are multiple shifts or night shifts. First aid coverage should be available at all times. Workplace location and size. Large or remote workplaces may need more first aiders or specific equipment to handle emergencies over larger areas. The next and the last topic of this whole element: selecting staff to be first aiders. When selecting individuals to be trained as first aiders, the following criteria should be considered: reliable and calm, able to stay composed in emergency situations, good communication skills, able to communicate effectively with injured persons and emergency services, awareness of own limitations, understanding their training, and knowing when to call for additional help, absorb knowledge and learn, willingness to undertake training and refresh their skills, ability to cope with stress, capable of handling stressful and possibly traumatic situations, physically fit, strong enough to assist injured individuals if necessary. Diversity considerations: select first aiders who reflect the workplace's demographic and are sensitive to gender, ethnicity, and religious needs. Able to be released from normal duties, first aiders must be available to respond promptly during emergencies. A comprehensive approach to emergency procedures and first aid is essential for any workplace. It ensures that when accidents or incidents occur, proper systems are in place to protect lives, reduce injuries, and facilitate swift recovery. So this is the end of element 3. It's a bit lengthy, but hope you understand each end point of this element. And I must say, after attending these classes, please read books of the course NEBOSH IGC. And if you have any question regarding this course, you can ask me in comment section or DM me in personal. I will more than willing to provide you respective answers. Thank you so much for participating in these classes. We will start element number 4 by tomorrow. Take care. Have a nice day to everyone. Bye.